Okay, good morning to everyone. Yep. I was just looking at the Japanese yen index. I was taking a look at it yesterday evening. I was watching it yesterday evening, and I was like, okay, this thing looks very, very interesting. After the Japanese and the US, intervention, the Japanese yen looks interesting to me, especially with how the prices are reacting. Now, this is from a purely technical perspective. I've not done the fundamental aspect of things. Okay, so I'm doing this particular analysis purely from a technical direction point of view. This is what I'm seeing, and like I always say, everything I do on here is not financial advice. Go do your own due diligence before you take any decision based off what I say over here. This is for purely educational purposes. Yeah. So Japanese yen index, all right? This controls the narrative when it comes to how the Japanese yen moves. The same way the dollar index controls the narrative when it comes to how the dollar index moves. So if you understand exactly the flow and the direction of the yen index and the dollar index, you can pretty much trade most of these currency pairs that are dollar and then Japanese yen influence. You understand? Okay. So this is I'm on the monthly time frame at the moment. Clearly, like I always tell you, just take a look at the most recent direction, and clearly you can see Japanese yen has been weak for a very long time. Very, very, very long time. It's just been coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down, coming down. Yep. And then we had this bounce here last month, and I mean, if you follow the data or the economic aspect of things, you know that this bounce was due to the yen intervention that the US did in collaboration with the Japanese finance ministry or the Bank of Japan. So that was the bounce that happened. Now, as to whether this particular bounce is just a pullback or a recipe for for continued reversals, I have no idea. I can't tell for now. I can't tell just by looking at the monthly time frame. This could be the beginning of a reversal on the Japanese yen, or this was just a short-term bounce and then we could continue to see the market trade lower. It's possible. Everything is possible when it comes to these markets. All right, so now to have a clear picture as to whether this particular move was just a bounce, let's drop down to the weekly time frame. But from the monthly time frame, you can clearly see that currently my monthly direction on the Japanese yen is to the downside. And I always say the higher the time frame, the stronger the direction. Okay, mine is to just come here and show you guys what I'm seeing direction wise. And then yours is just to use whatever technical strategy you have to execute if the market lines up with your direction as well. Okay. So yes, I'm not here to give you trade signals. I don't do that. So now let me drop down to the weekly time frame. So then the monthly is pointing to the downside. Let me drop down to the weekly time frame. Let's see what the weekly is saying. Okay. So this is the weekly time frame. This is I marked here because that is the most recent low. Okay, so from the weekly time frame, if I'm to look at the most recent direction of the Japanese yen index, it is bullish. The weekly is pointing to the upside. And like I always tell you guys, a weekly time frame is my go-to time frame when it comes to direction. Okay. Yes, when it comes to direction, that is my go-to time frame. So far as the weekly time frame holds its structures, holds its technical direction, I am going in line with that particular direction. So the weekly is equal to bullish, and that is why I'm saying that there's a potential possibility that Japanese yen will start reacting and start potentially probably flip the monthly time frame and then we will start headed higher. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's highly, highly possible, especially if the weekly time frame should hold, its structures, its bullish direction at the moment. So I'm going to drop down to the daily time frame, but before I do that, I'm going to pull the Fibonacci out and I'm going to push from the low to the high. What can I see currently? After the after the bounce, the intervention we've seen the Japanese yen trade back lower down to the 50% levels. So it's giving back, half of the gains of the push higher. The intervention push is giving up back half of it, currently sitting around the 50% Fibonacci level. So it's the come down 50%. Now, you hear most traders who say, oh, it's come down 50%, let's start buying. No, no, no. The fact that they pull back 50% does not mean you're going to buy, because mind you, the monthly time frame is still bearish. And so there is that iota of weakness still in the Japanese yen index. All right. Still in the Japanese yen market. Um some sort of weakness over there. So you can't just outrightly decide to, oh, let's buy. Let's buy because the weekly is bullish. Nope. So I'm gonna drop down to the daily time frame, and you take a look at the daily time frame and see what is happening on the daily. Okay, so this is the daily time frame. Now you see the pullback clearer. Okay, the retracement, you can now see it much more clearer from the daily perspective. You can see the pullback clearer. Okay, so from the daily time frame, Japanese yen is currently bearish. If I'm to look at the most recent direction, yep, it's bearish. Okay, it's bearish. It's headed lower. Now, let me say this. If the daily time frame should continue to hold its bearish structure, as the weeks progress, then there's a big possibility we are going to see the weekly time frame shift back into a bearish position, and the Japanese yen will resume its, bearish direction long term. Because if the weekly shifts, then we're going to have the monthly, weekly, and the daily all lined up in the same direction. But if the daily time frame should shift back to a bullish direction, then there's a possibility that the Japanese yen could have just begun, you know, potential reversals to the upside. And that would mean you can now potentially look at selling the dollar yen, because the dollar index currently is weak. And if the Japanese yen is going to be strong from even a technical perspective, if you pair the two, it'll be a very, very good opportunity to start looking for sell opportunities on the dollar yen currency pair. You understand? Yes. So as of now, I'm watching closely. I'm watching closely because the yen has been weak for a very long time. So if it decides to flip bullish and hold, that bullish momentum on the weekly time frame by the daily flip, and then we are about to see amazing buys from the the yen index. It's about to We're about to see very, very, very good push-ups from the yen index. Yeah. So now, but let's drop down to the 4 hour time frame because the week has still not ended. We are still, let me see what the 4 hour is in. So the 4 hour time frame is also bearish at the moment. It's lined up with the 4 hour time frame is bearish at the moment. If I look at the most recent price action, it's headed to the downside. So let's see. The daily will shift if the 4 hour, gets that bullish directional shift, and if it holds, then it will flip the daily, and that will mean the daily will now line up with the weekly time frame. So you'd have the daily and the weekly being bullish and the monthly still being bearish. But if the weekly holds its momentum for a very long time, then we could potentially see the Japanese yen start flipping, direction. Yep. So but I have a strong feeling it might not necessarily flip the monthly. bullish, but I have a strong feeling we are going to start seeing some good potential buys on the Japanese yen. But if it flips, then oh yeah, then it's going to be an amazing because it's been weak for a very long time. So if it starts pushing higher, oh, expect some really, really, really good swing opportunities on JPY influence markets. Yeah, so that's it. That is it. That is it. Watch closely. Watch it closely. Let's see. Let's see. Hmm. Yeah, so I'm more neutral. Mm. More neutral at the moment. Or let's say I'm more neutral to bullish. Okay, bullish, neutral to bullish because of the weekly time frame direction. You get it. I'm more neutral to bullish at the moment. Because once I see the daily time frame or the 4 hour shift, back higher and sustain, its direction, then it's going to potentially flip the daily time frame and ooh, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. So at the moment on the Japanese yen, I am neutral to bullish on the yen, neutral to bullish on the yen. Yep. The Japanese yen would have to let me put a price to it. Would have to flip this particular price level here on the daily time frame. That's around 60. That's the most recent high, 676.9. Yeah. If we can cleanly close above that on the daily price close, then I'm telling you, the daily would also have shifted, and we could potentially see the yen, make some pretty good gains to the upside. And the pullback to, below 50% and around the 62% levels, those are good discount areas to buy from. Very, very, very good discount areas to start looking for buy positions from. Well, yeah, so I'm neutral to bullish. I'm still waiting for at least a daily time frame to also confirm. If it does, then I would start looking for trading opportunities on um the CAD yen, especially because the CAD yen at the moment, has a monthly time frame that is bearish. So if there's any yen market that I would want to trade, it will be the CAD JPY. If the Japanese yen flips bearish, sorry, flips bullish, I'll be looking at selling the CAD JPY. I'll do a video on that on the CAD yen. Yeah. Let me just attach the CAD yen video to this so that just in case. No, I'll do another video just so this video does not become too long. But if the Japanese yen, the yen index flips bullish, then I'll be looking at selling. I'm looking at selling the CAD yen. Yes, I'm looking at selling the CAD yen. If JPY becomes bullish, then I'll be looking at selling CAD JPY. I'll bring you the directional analysis on that. But for now, let me wait and see if this is going to flip. But if the Japanese yen does not flip bullish and the daily time frame, the high on the daily time frame continues to hold, which is around here. If it continues to hold, then we should expect the Japanese yen to continue to trade lower and eventually flip the weekly time frame back to being bearish. So now you'd have the monthly, the weekly, and the daily all lined up in the same direction to the downside, and then you'd want to now look to buy the yen indexes. Okay, sorry, you don't want to look to buy the yen influence currency pairs. Okay, yeah, let me end it here. I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed on another interesting development, aside the US dollar. Yep, so this is the Japanese yen, and I'm watching this closely, closely. Yes, don't forget to always subscribe, like I always say. After watching the video, subscribe. Yeah, leave a notification, leave a comment. If you want to reach out, you can reach out to me. Let's talk. If there's anything you don't understand, I'm quite available when I want to be. Okay, I'll be available to take you through one or two things. And yes, don't forget to visit the website www.sogcap.com. Visit the blog, go read. You can also subscribe to the macro tracker, which helps you understand exactly the DXY bias score. Okay, the DXY bias score and the breakdown of all these economic stuff that gets a lot of retail traders confused. I've done that over there in plain language, so you can easily have an understanding of it without being stressed. Okay, because like I always say, the fundamentals is what determines the direction of the market, not the technical. The technical just gives you when to enter, but the fundamental gives you why you are entering, and you need the why to give you to give you the confidence you need as to when to execute the position. Yes. So stay safe and be blessed.